you to Gnome East's very first Munch and Master series for Adobe Analytics user groups. Oh, sorry, I'm going to start over. I just heard it. Yes. So, well, everybody, you have heard of Lunch and Learns. Well, I would like to welcome everybody to Gnome East's very first Munch and Master. It's a Munch and Master series of Adobe Analytics user group meetings. We hope you brought your appetite for learning and something to munch on during the session. For today's event, we will be returning to a popular topic from Adobe Summit, which was Adobe Analytics Dashboards for the newest feature that has been rolled out for that product, which is data stories. But before we get too much further, we need to take care of a few quick pieces of business. First, if you haven't already joined our user group, there is I heard something in the background. If you haven't joined our user group, here's a very quick QR code link to find our page and join. And then we will provide this link again at the end of the presentation. And then, as well, we have a separate QR code where you can go to our YouTube channel, and that's where you will find all of our previous sessions. And yes, today's presentation is also being recorded. Second, of course, we would like to make sure that you have met our members, and since we have started out with a bit of a Star Wars theme to begin, we thought we might carry that through in some of our material today. And of course, it only makes sense because this is the May. So I'd like to start out. I am the manager of digital e-commerce analytics. My name is Jeff Bloomer. So I am the manager of digital e-commerce analytics for Kroger Personal Finance. And I've been a manager of the Adobe Analytics Champions since, I've been a member of the Adobe Analytics Champions since 2021. I'm also a highly active advocate, evangelist, and educator in the Gnome East Adobe Analytics user group, and as a member of the Adobe Community Advisors. I have over 20 years of experience working with data and over a decade of experience working in the digital industry, which includes Adobe Analytics. I'm very passionate about driving data and documentation standards, reporting automation, and helping to make learning all about all this just a little bit more fun. And as I'm sure you can tell, I'm a huge movie enthusiast. And fun fact for the day, I'm actually classically trained tenor and vocalist, and I also like to do cartoon voices.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Dungan, and I am the Optimization Manager Analytics for Torstar. And if you haven't heard of Torstar, it's one of Canada's largest media publishers, focusing mostly on print media, such as the Toronto Star, which you probably have heard of, plus a lot of our other papers and other products. I am kind of considered the Yoda of analytics in my company. I get that quite a lot. And basically, I handle all of the analytics, Adobe, Google Analytics, and Parsley Analytics for our entire organization, with my Padawan below me, who's quickly picking up the skills and learning. Like Jeff, I have also one of the Adobe champions. I've been a champion since 2020. And I'm also a community advisor. So you'll see me in quite a lot of places trying to share my knowledge because, like Jeff, I love helping people to learn, to pick up new skills, and to push the boundaries of their own implementations to find crazy and creative solutions. Because, you know, it's not fun if it's not crazy. Oh, Jeff, do you want to bring up the pictures? There you go. Sorry. So I'm also a nerd, very, very nerdy. But you know what? We're all nerds. We're data nerds. Nerd is the new cool. And so hopefully you enjoyed today's session.
All right, I'm Andy Lunsford. I'm an Associate Director of Data Instrumentation at Razorfish. I've worked in all kinds of fun industries such as legal, banking, and grocery, and I love helping our clients at Razorfish implement their data in the most scalable and streamlined way possible so my analyst colleagues can derive the wonderful insights that help their businesses grow. I've spent 10 years in the data field, and I like to consider myself an Adobe launch Jedi at this point. I occasionally contribute to my blog where I walk through some fun case scenarios and tips I've learned in my experience and kind of just share them with people because I think the common thing that brings all of us co-leaders together is that we just love helping the community grow and find new exciting ways to grow their understanding and use cases of Adobe Launch, Adobe Analytics in their work. And I think I'm very excited to have the presentation as well. And I'll pass it back to Jeff.
Thank you. Today, we would like to recognize one of our user group members who is attending the session today. He's very active helping those of us in the Experience Cloud out in the LinkedIn community in the official Adobe Experience Cloud user group. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome and shout out to Riley Spraggs in our user group meeting this morning. And here's a QR code with a link to the user group on LinkedIn for you to learn more about the group. Riley, would you like to say a few words? Are you out there?
I'm out here. Hi, Jeff. Thank you for having me today. Yeah, my name is Riley Spraggs. I'm head of Adobe Talent at Focus GTS, and I also manage the Adobe Experience Cloud user group on LinkedIn. I'd encourage everybody to go on over there and join that community as well. A lot of like-minded professionals. And I think they would get a really good kick out of all of the Star Wars themed things you guys got going on here, which is great. I love it. I'm a great person to reach out to if you're looking for a new position in the industry or looking to hire Adobe talent. But thank you, Jeff, so much for having me today. Looking forward to today's event. You guys are doing a great job.
All right. Thank you very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to transition to our main topic of the day. If you didn't have the time, if you didn't have the opportunity to see us at Adobe Summit, well, then you are in for a special treat. Today, Adobe Summit strikes back because we are bringing you an encore presentation of 1,000 insights in your pocket. And to help us do that, please help us give another warm welcome to one of our favorite senior product managers from Adobe, Jennifer Workmeister.
Thanks, Jeff.
And this time I'm going to go ahead and exit and let you take over.
All right. Thanks so much. Just a second to get my screen share going. All right, y'all, have we made the transition?
Yes.
Great. So hello, I'm Jennifer Workmeister. As Jeff mentioned, I'm a senior product manager for Adobe. One of the products that I work on is the Analytics Dashboards App, which is what we're talking about here today. A little else about me, I've been with Adobe for almost 4 years now, coming up on 4 years in August, and I live in Salt Lake City. All right, so let's get into it. So in this session, we're going to learn a couple of different things. First, we're going to go over how Analytics Dashboards can help you do more with less, how to easily create a mobile scorecard, and then we're going to showcase some of what Jeff has been doing over at Kroger Personal Finance, as well as a few other little highlight stories from some of our guest stars today. And then I'm also going to show you the meat of this presentation is how you can enhance your mobile scorecards with data stories, which is a new feature that we've released only a couple months ago. And then lastly, we'll finish off with some extra use cases, tips, and tricks. So let's start with how would you do more with less with analytics dashboards? So tell me, does this sound familiar? You've created the perfect workspace project. It's tailored to your audience and it contains everything that you might need. But then you feel a disturbance in the force. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, we kid. I couldn't see y'all's reactions, but that delighted me. Big thanks to Jeff for putting that video together. But we laugh about it a little bit, but we also understand. So Workspace is a really powerful tool, and like many powerful tools, it's not for everyone. And so we realize that many executives, decision makers, or stakeholders, they're reliant on their analyst teams for simple queries, and it's nearly impossible for them to get concise answers to their data questions on the fly. And so what this means is you're getting bombarded with questions, edits, things outside of the initial analysis that you already put together. So we knew that accessibility of data was a problem for decision makers and analyst teams. So that's why we created the Dashboards app. It's a simple way to give executives and decision makers frictionless access to the data they need to run their business. With the app, they'll have access to those up-to-date metrics anytime, anywhere, so that they can make those data-informed decisions in the moments that matter. And so what this means for you is hopefully less questions about, where did that number come from? Can you give me a quick stat on something that came up in a meeting? Sending updates to stakeholders who are uncomfortable self-serving, or creating reports in PowerPoint, email, and Excel. We realized that our users were spending a lot of time on these, and they weren't able to spend the time that they wanted on that deeper analysis. So we're hoping that this frees up some time for you so that you can focus on those bigger and better things. So why would your end users actually want to use this? We've already talked about how senior leaders and decision makers aren't comfortable accessing their tools. So why is this any different? So first, the mobile app gives frictionless access through bioauthentication. That's going to remove that resistance to logging in. You only have to get them to log in once, and then from then on, if it sees their face or they enter their code, they can get into their information in a way that is safe and secure. And the second is portability. One of the main reasons we see stakeholders asking for things in PDF is because they can open it on any device, which is important when they're on the go. It's something that they know they're going to be able to access from their phone. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to read a PDF on your phone where you're like zooming and pinching. It's not a great experience. So with the Dashboards app, it's specifically designed to be viewed on a mobile device. So it's always accessible to them anywhere. And it's really easy to access and read. Also, ease of use. So we know it's hard to get people to take on new things or to learn new things. So we've specifically designed the mobile app to be relatively simplified. But what that means is that there's no learning curve. You can get into the app and start using it right away without any education. And lastly is concise insights. The app is designed to have the most important things front and center and to get you immediately to that so what. That's why we have tiles. That's why there's that percentage change on the tiles. And then if you need to go a little deeper, you can double click on those tiles into the detail slides. But the idea is that it gets them immediately to what it is that they're looking for without a lot of clutter. And that helps them to get their information faster for faster time to action. So let's talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. So by design, the Dashboards app is going to be better at some things than others. We've intentionally kept it really streamlined and simple so that it can be a reporting tool that's really accessible to executives and business users. So what that means is it's not going to be a general purpose BI solution or Workspace for mobile. Its power is really in its simplicity. So it's going to keep it accessible to your stakeholders And it also means that you're going to be able to create a scorecard really quickly. So let's see how easy it is to build a scorecard. I'm not going to show you everything, but just enough so that you can see that it's really simple and feel confident about creating one yourself. So we're going to start in a familiar space. All you have to do is click on blank mobile scorecard, or anywhere you go to create a new project, there's always going to be the option to create a blank mobile scorecard. So here you have your beginning scorecard screen. This is what we call the canvas. And from here, you can begin just dragging and dropping your components into the canvas. It's going to automatically start building out that scorecard with something useful. So you can drag in metrics, you can drag in dimensions, and you can see as I'm dragging these in that it's automatically creating a tile, what we call a tile on the tile screen. That's that screen to the far left. And you can see when I drop something into a tile, it's then creating a detail slide. That's something that when your stakeholders click on the tile, they get that slide and they can dig a little bit deeper into those charts and tables. So from here, you can easily edit your tiles or your detail slides. You can add dimensions. So here I'm actually adding multiple dimensions, and that's going to allow my stakeholders to switch between dimension views. So it'll be the same view, but they can see it broken down by different dimensions. You can also hide and show specific dimension items. So this is really useful for like hiding unspecified or hiding specific dimension items that are irrelevant or distracting. You can also change the visualizations. So you can change it for just the slide under slide properties, or you can change it for the tile and slide together by dragging a visualization into the slide, or I mean onto the tile. You can see that everything that you apply to your tile, you can apply across all of its underlying slides if you want to. You can also change the layout depending on what kind of information you want to focus on. You can choose to show just the visualization or just the table, or if you want a more detailed list, or you can choose a layout that includes text in case you want to write a little context or explanation. You can also edit the date ranges. These will appear as a list that your stakeholders will be able to pick between. So all scorecards come with the ability to compare data between two time periods. That's so what? That's the percentage change that you see there. So you can also choose from any of your predefined date ranges and a few automatic logical comparison dates. Or if none of that works for you, you can create your own custom dates. And don't worry, if you want to turn off the comparison date range, you can always turn that feature off. Now I'm going to hand it back to Jeff, who's going to talk more about how he's created a focused and accessible way to access data at Kroger Personal Finance.
Okay, so can you see my screen again?
Sure can.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right. So I'm not going to show you everything, but what I did wanted to do was just, give you enough so you can get a simple idea and feel confident about creating something for yourself. So a lot of people, have still been, like dependent upon PDFs. I mean, PDFs are just kind of a necessary evil that a lot of people deal with. But just think about it, PDFs, many times they work, but, sometimes they just don't. And, if there's any kind of an interruption to things, some people might, have to reach out and then, then I'll send out another one. But even so, if you think about it, report data is static, meaning, our data consumers, they can't filter their data, they can't break it down. So this limits people in the number of questions that they can ask and how deeply that they can go into the report, and then, data becomes very stale very quickly. Lastly, one of the main reasons that they would want a PDF is because, they want something that's, very portable, very easy that they can open up on their phone. But, if you think about it, that's also not the most friendly format to actually view on a phone. So, first, if you can't filter the data, and then the Workspaces report is like really long, and when you get it, then it's not necessarily formatted, the best to even look at a phone. So, if you try and pinch it and look at it and all that kind of stuff, you're kind of like pushing it, and then you're scrolling and dragging and all that stuff. So it's just not the best thing to try and look at on a portable phone. So what I'm going to do is just kind of like show you an example of a common workspace that we look at, and how I then created a more focused mobile scorecard to support easier data access. So this is actually from a project that I have from a report on gift card sales. And then as you can see here, I actually have to include a disclaimer that the date ranges only work if you're logged into an Adobe Analytics workspace. So none of the features are actually dynamic when they're in a PDF. Now, after all the disclaimers, I put the summary totals for the most important metrics and their summary change rates up top. Now notice that I have to repeat blocks for different date ranges of how the data is consumed, that I can't rely on my stakeholders to be able to change the date ranges for different views within the workspace. Then I have many tables or breakdowns across different dimensions and metrics. Just like the date ranges, I have to include extra information with the expectation that it will be then turned into a PDF, and then my stakeholders won't always be able to change things dynamically. Now, I'm going to show you how I took this same information and created a more focused scorecard. Now in this scorecard, I can put all of my most important metrics with their percent changes, just like I did in a workspace, but here it's even more consolidated. So this is a tidy, at a glance view of what is happening. So if you notice at the top that my stakeholders can select what date range they're looking at. So by providing them a dynamic filter up at the top for the date range as well as for important segments, this allows me to avoid duplicating things. Then, instead of having to infinitely scroll through a bunch of tables with multiple breakdowns and metrics like the Workspace project, the breakdowns for each metric are accessible by simply tapping on the metric's title. Not only does this give me a breakdown for the metric, but now they can choose which dimension they want to break it down by. So this scorecard contains the bulk of what I have in Workspace. But this approach makes it a lot more focused, simplified, and a lot easier for my stakeholders to access. So when I first shared this with my manager and a number of other people, they were actually surprised by the easy access to the live data. In fact, one of our directors even half joked saying, this is live data. You'll have to be careful who you show this to. It was obviously a tongue-in-cheek gag about all of the questions and conversations that it would start, but that was actually the point. With this, people at Kroger and Kroger Personal Finance will have access to immediate information that they can react to, ask more questions, and have important conversations and make decisions. And now when something comes up, they don't always have to follow up with me to get the latest numbers. They can access them whenever they need them, right on the spot. Pretty dangerous, right? Now I'm going to turn this back over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet.
Well, if you thought that was dangerous, just wait till I show you what you can do with data stories. Can you all see the screen?
Yep.
Great. Yeah. So I'm excited to introduce you to data stories. So as we saw before, you had a tile with a single detail slide, but now you can actually create multiple custom detail slides, which is going to allow you to tell the full story behind a single metric or theme in your scorecards. So let's see how we can create a data story. To create a data story, you either add a blank slide by clicking the plus button or the duplicate button. Then you can start dragging in dimensions and metrics just like you did with tiles earlier. So I'm going to continue telling the revenue story, but for this next slide, instead of focusing on account type, I'm going to drag in marketing channel. And because I get lots of questions about my marketing channel, I'm going to change the layout to one that includes text. So this is going to allow me to answer some commonly asked questions about marketing channel definitions before they're asked. So all I do is I'm just going to copy and paste in here. You can also change the layout of the text if you want. And then there, now I have a little bit of explanation about my marketing channels. So as I mentioned before, you can also duplicate slides. It's not playing. There we go. So I find this useful because I'm usually just doing variations on the same theme. So for this one, I'm going to rename it from marketing channel to device type. So I don't really need to explain device types, so I'm going to switch it back to a chart and table layout. And then for this one, I think it would look better as a donut because I want to understand what percentage of traffic is coming from each device type. Okay. Did I skip one? Yeah, okay, we're good. So you can navigate between the different screens that you create by clicking on its little icons at the bottom or by clicking the arrow buttons. And now I've clicked preview. So now we're going to see how your stakeholders are going to navigate. So they can tap on any tile and then they can just swipe between the different detail slides. So you can have a full story hidden underneath each tile. And it's only when they tap on it and they want more information that they can go into the data story and swipe. And as you saw, even within each detail slide, there's still options of being able to potentially change, the dimension or other things that you've included in those detail slides. So that's a very brief overview of what you can do. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do data stories to tell different kinds of stories. So let's go over some common ways that people use data stories. So the first is a multi-step journey to conversion. So think like applying for a credit card, where you're wanting to see how customers are moving through each step. But then in each step, you may want a little bit more breakdown, a little bit more detail to understand what's causing, either spikes or lows in the traffic and getting through that funnel. So you might have the conversion metric as your tile, and then you would use a detail slide for each step in that journey. Another example would be a bunch of associated metrics with the same filters and breakdowns. So let's say, for instance, you're interested in traffic to your site, and you're always going to want to see that by region or by user group filter. But if you're interested in traffic, you're probably interested in visits, but you may also be interested in visitors, unique visitors or new visitors. So what you can do is you can use a different metric in each one of those detail slides. So your frontline tile might be visits, but then you can go and look through each of those metrics and you can filter it by the exact same breakdowns. And that's going to be really easy for you to do, again, if you're using that duplicate feature, because then all you do is you duplicate your slide and you drag over a new metric and you're done. The last one is if you have a metric with different filters and breakdowns, kind of like what we just saw. So you can have a metric with different filters and breakdowns, and you can have that all in one detail slide if you want it all to be the same view. But what do you do if you want to show slightly different views? So like we just did, where we wanted a little bit of explanation on one, we wanted to show one as a donut instead of a bar chart. You can do that where you have each slide as a different breakdown and a different way that you want to display that breakdown to get to the most important information. With that, I will hand it back to Jeff.
Thank you. So this is probably one of my favorite slides. So everybody, I think you probably have frustrations when you deal with regular Adobe Analytics Workspace. And this is where I just tend to geek out a little bit, because when you get to mess around a little bit more with the data stories and really get to understand what you get to do, and this is why I vamp a little bit with this, because this is just so much fun when I got to play around with it. The ability to have multiple pages within the Dashboards app is so different than what you get to do with Adobe Analytics Workspace. In Workspace, remember when I was talking about the scroll, 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 and scroll? Well, guess what? You still have to do that in Workspace. But in this, okay, you get to nest things. So that's what's awesome about this. You can drill down within the scorecard without the clutter. So you get to nest things. So in this example, what I'm actually doing is I'm giving my users, my data consumers, the opportunity to actually, explore the data. So I'm giving the opportunity to explore our top performing marketing channels. So in this first tile, they can easily see our total sales and see how each channel is performing. So we get questions a lot about top performing channels and things like that. So if they actually click here, then they get to pop over to our top performing channels. So if you drill down, you can actually see how each marketing channel is then performing. Then they can swipe, and they can even get more granular in the next screen, and they can actually look at bounce rates. Well, here's what's really cool is then the thing is I can actually define things and get a little bit further and actually explain what a bounce rate is and put in some text here, so we can actually have the ability to choose what kind of slide we provide them here. And I'm even linking out to an explanation, an experience league page of what the bounce rate is, so what's actually going on within this slide. And then I can actually swipe again, because we have other people within our group that want to actually understand, the external campaign tracking stuff. So because they want to understand campaign tracking. So that's the last channel detail, that's last touch channel related to the marketing channels information. And then they can swipe again and go over the top performing campaigns that are related to this campaign channel. So the thing is they can keep diving into detail. But the fun part of this is it's not a scroll that you have to have buried at the bottom of a report. It's all neat and tidy. And that's the beautiful thing that you get to have within these data stories, and you can have them all built right into these nice little tiles. And it's very easy to use, and it's super portable, and it's not in this static, ugly PDF that they have to, that they have to, get in an email or something like that. So that is the beauty that you get with this particular solution. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this back over to Jennifer so that she can then talk about the use cases, tips, and tricks.
Great. All right, next slide. So we've talked a lot about executives, and that's because that's what the app was initially designed for. And that kept a really high bar in terms of making it simple and easy to use. But what we found is that it's actually not just for executives, it's for anyone who needs regular or immediate access to their data. So we've seen it really take off with sales teams, marketing teams, product managers, product buyers, and even journalists and content writers who are just looking for up-to-date metrics on how it is that their content is doing.
And
I can speak to a use case that I found for it, which has been very helpful on the implementation side, which is monitoring rules and occurrences for implementation post-release without having to log into a computer to monitor it. And you're no longer tied to your desk after release, kind of watching it hour over hour to see, oh, how are things looking? How has this release gone? You can kind of break out, we have this shown right here, it's broken out by filters based on domains, a link type, other metrics, so that we can see how the launch library release is impacting data collection as a whole compared to a previous period. So we have previous periods built that show like yesterday up to this hour, compared to today up to this hour. So we can see, oh, has there been a significant decline? Oh, our page views firing a lot more. And if they are firing a lot more, which page view rule is triggering it? Because we capture page view inside a prop. And we can see trending based off of rules, and be able to understand how our implementation is being like affected at a very granular level, right from the mobile app, which is fantastic. And you can even use it. Future like steps are kind of to like look at it by library builds too. So we could have library information captured inside a prop, and we could see how much the new library has been adopted and been rolled out to end users. So if we know there's a caching issue or our site has some Akamai caching that delays a little bit of the launch release, we can see how many users right from the mobile app are getting the new analytics library. And it's kind of just the world's your oyster with what you can do with it. It's awesome. And I'll pass it to Jen for her use cases.
Right. Yes. Thanks, Andy. Actually, I'm probably going to be stealing some of that from you. So another use case, thinking from a media perspective, we have a lot of different newspaper sites and they're all in one global suite. So having a report that kind of shows general trends, particularly for the last week, again, because news is kind of volatile. So a one day view probably isn't enough for people, but they can change it, of course. But standard things like page views, visits, unique visitors, page views per visit, and then some what our wall conversion rates are, our meter stop rates. And then, of course, there are drop downs that like our main filter to actually break it out by specific sites. So the main is all encompassing, whereas the breakdown would allow somebody to drill in specifically to what's happening on the star or what's happening on the spec or what's happening on a different site. So that's how I've sort of set up my default filtering. And then you go next, Jeff. And then within some of those core elements, such as page views, instead of having another weekly view, it is still week data, but I've actually now broken it out by our subscribers' page views based on what platform they're using. Are they on our mobile app or the tablet app? Are they on our desktop web, our mobile web, our tablet? Are they coming from AMP? So that's how I've sort of broken this out to actually show our subscriber data. And then controversially, I have another screen which shows our non-subscriber data. So now our executives can easily see what's happening at the subscriber level, what's happening at the non-subscriber level. And then to break that out further for some of those wall-specific items, because there is no such thing as walls for subscribers, like that doesn't make any sense, I've actually broken the wall out differently, showing the percentages based on the wall type. So you can play with it, but figure out what works for you. You don't necessarily need to follow the same pattern for each of your breakdowns. Break it out in the way that makes the most logical sense and add different variations that people can swipe through that's going to show them the kind of data that they need. And back to you guys.
Great, thank you. Well, as we know, the Analytics Dashboards app works for core analytics, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out that it's also especially powerful with customer journey analytics. So the Dashboards app, well, imagine offering stakeholders a real-time, multi-channel view of their business, all from the comfort of their phone. That includes everything from across their entire business. Now that is what gives you 1,000 insights in your pocket. So as I mentioned before, we know that change is not always easy. So here are some tips and tricks for getting your stakeholders to actually adopt the Dashboards app. First, take advantage of big events. So I know internally, especially Summit was a big event to get our internal stakeholders involved and invested in the app. For many retail organizations, that's going to be the Thanksgiving holiday retail season. Especially because they're going to be away from their computers. So we always see a huge spike in usage for the app each year around Thanksgiving because they're really interested and concerned about how their sales are going, but they don't necessarily want to log into their laptops. Another example or another tip is to answer specific needs. So when somebody asks you one of those, annoying questions of, can I see this report broken out in a different way, or can you give me the most up-to-date stats on something, or can you create, a special report monitoring this or that for me? Use that as an opportunity to use the Dashboards app to answer that need, because they've come to you with that pull, right? So then it's relatively easy to just hand it to them, and then they're actually going to use it rather than saying, I've created this thing for you, like now go please use it. This is a lot more effective. Also, find a champion. So we've seen organizations adopt the app, and uptake in app usage across the organization is fairly anemic until a key driver will adopt the app, and that tends to be a pretty senior person. And as soon as they start using it, showing it to people, bringing it up in meetings, and people know that those are the numbers that they're looking at, then everyone will adopt it. And then lastly, check back in. Something we've seen is that you know analysts will create a scorecard, and it's based sort of on what they've seen before in workspace projects, and like they have a pretty good idea of what their stakeholders need, and so they'll produce this dashboard and they'll show it to their stakeholders, and their stakeholders are like, yes, amazing, this is exactly what I needed. But over time we find that maybe they aren't going back and revisiting it as much, and so there's sort of this disconnect where the person who created the scorecard thinks that it's doing its job, when really the usage has kind of fallen off. And that's because there's still some unanswered questions, or it doesn't quite go deep enough into what those stakeholders are really looking for. So after you've gotten that initial positive feedback, because it will be positive, they'll be very excited. Check back in like a month, 2 months, 3 months later, and say like, hey, like, have you been using it? Like, why, or why not? And that's where you're really going to find like, oh yeah, it's great, but like, I don't need that as regularly. What I really need is like this next step deeper. And so that's where you're really going to find like, that's it. That's what they need. This will also show up again in like questions that they come back to you with. So that's always an opportunity to, either add or potentially trim down information in your scorecards. And so lastly, I have this extremely unbiased decision tree for you. If your org struggles with removing friction and empowering leaders and business users with easy data access, if your org is already driven by data, the app can also help by speeding time to action and empowering your analyst teams to do more with less. So basically, no matter where your organization is today, empowering stakeholders with frictionless access to the data that they need is always going to be a good thing. And then lastly, this is my personal work email address. If you have questions, comments, concerns, features that you would like to see, I always love to hear from you. I warn you, if you do reach out to me, very possibly I might want to talk to you and learn a little bit more about your experience. And then also, I just want to point out, we've gone over a lot of information today. The point of that was to show you that creating scorecards is like pretty easy, and there's a bunch of things that you can do with it. But if you really want to dig into how to create your own scorecards, I also encourage you to check out Experience League. Just Google Experience League Analytics Dashboards App. That's what I do. I don't even try to navigate the different trees and stuff. Just Google that. That'll get you to everything that you can do with the app, with very detailed step-by-steps, videos, etc. Not all of my videos are up on YouTube, but all of them are up there in that documentation page. And that's it. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. All right. So everybody, please, thank you. Everybody give a hand to everybody. So, all right. So at this time, would love to start fielding some questions. Did we have any still in the chat?
I didn't see anything come in through the chat, just a few comments early on about if there is a LinkedIn group for Adobe Analytics, but I haven't seen anything else come in question related. It was just so mind-blowing that everyone was just focused.
Completely left speechless,
I'm sure that's it. I think so.
Okay. Do we have any questions now now that we are at the end?
So Jeff, I am just going to drop a link here in the chat for everyone if they do want to explore the Dashboards app a little bit more.
Okay.
I'll take them directly to where they can create a scorecard.
Great. See one question. So usually it takes.
We got one coming.
Usually just need, sometimes it takes one seeded question to like start the ball rolling too. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to reshare the first slide because I promised to reshare the QR code for the user group again, as well as the link for
and Jeff, there's a question. So while you're switching that over, maybe I'll get Jennifer starting to answer this. So not really related to mobile scorecards. I know in an ideal world, everything would stay digital and interactive, but sometimes things need to be static or printed. Adobe PDF is an Adobe product. Why doesn't Adobe allow Workspace to be PDF printer friendly?
That's funny.
That is a great question. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that because that rests a little bit outside of my area of work.
What, you don't have a printer that can print a page which is over 1 meter tall? Come on.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we know is a thing for users. I cannot speak to where that is or what the difficulty is, unfortunately.
I guess rule of thumb there is if you probably want it to be printer friendly, as much as, you know, I sort of hate to say break it out this way, break your reports out into multiple panels, because I believe that the pagination on the PDF renderer tries to keep a panel all in one sheet. And if it's a really big panel, it's going to be huge. So if you break it out into multiple panels, I think the raster job that actually makes the PDF probably has an easier time of breaking it into a slightly more printable version.
I would add to what Jennifer's saying on that. This is what I've seen in the past. I'm not sure if it still does this behavior, but if you create a scheduled report, it does paginate the pages. So if it's a situation where you need a report on a regular basis, it might be worth just making it a scheduled report, because then you get the PDF export, add yourself as recipient, and you'll get a PDF copy that will have the pagination thrown in there.
When you do the send to PDF, doesn't it do the same thing? Or
so if it's a long enough report, I've noticed it does like what Jennifer's called out about the long PDF that's being printed on a poster.
Maybe that's new, because
I didn't know that it behaved differently when you do the scheduled versus the regular send. That is interesting.
I'm pretty sure it used to do that at least. I remember seeing that at some point, but
that's fascinating.
I have to take a look at it again.
I don't know. When I used to have scheduled reports sent to me, they were always too long for printing. I was just keeping a digital copy anyway, so it's kind of hard to say, but that would be worth looking back into. Normally I just have the reports being sent off to people, and I don't really look at them because I don't need my inbox filled with basically I have reports that go out for each of our newspapers. So I have basically 30 identical reports, one for each newsroom. I don't need 30 reports in my inbox.
That's scary.
Well, that sounds like fun.
But that's actually a very interesting point, Andy. So 2 things for you to try.
And call me out if I'm wrong on it, because I thought it did that, but I'm trying to find an example now. And I'm like, maybe I have one downloaded somewhere.
And if not, we're just going to wave our arms and go, this is not the answer you were looking for.
Meanwhile, I'm just going to encourage everybody else to come on over to the dark side and do the Analytics Dashboards app. Any other questions out there? Got a quiet group today.
We do. Either that or they're still all just stunned at what they can do. We'll just go with that since we don't know any better.
Done. Jenny Constable, that's great.
Either that or frozen in carbonite. We could go that route too.
Yes, we will. So that's what the second QR code is for, Stephen. That is the link out to our YouTube channel. So once we are done with today's session, Chase, who is wonderful, will go ahead and get this recording, and he will go ahead and put it out.
And if you can't think of any questions now, but you have questions later on, and you're unsure if you want to reach out directly to Jennifer, if you want to reach out to all of us, by all means, post your questions on Experience League, because I know Jeff and I are there, all the time. We'll be watching for it, and we can pull in, make sure that Andy sees it, make sure Jennifer sees it, and we can get your questions answered in that format as well. So, or you can reach out to any of us. I mean, I think we're all been transparent about ways to reach out to us, whether it be on LinkedIn or through Experience League or whatnot. Like we're happy to help. Thank you, Chase.
No problem.
Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, we might be able to give some other people, looks like people are starting to leave. So
Yep.
We can go ahead and give people a little bit of time back to their day. So we really appreciate everybody coming out and spending some time with us today and learning more about the Adobe Analytics Dashboards app. So thank you very much for coming out and joining us. So we're going to go ahead and end the session. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all later.
Bye.
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 Bye.